hard sometimes to know how best to how best to deal with new stresses in your life. So when the proposal came forward to have someone present on this topic, the youth were discussing it, and Brother Sherman has been a friend of mine for a long time, and I and Chestnut actually knew that he worked in this sort of thing, and she recommended him, and I said, oh, that actually is a great idea. So Jonathan Sherman is a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's a relationship strategist. He specializes in great relationships. He also has a website, marriageenvy.com. His I can say from a personal perspective, his wife is actually probably the one who teaches him about relationships and marriage and helps keep him in line. But his kind of three main focus areas are transforming marriages, parent training, and self-mastery. And I've seen him. I actually attended a marriage and family relations course with Brother and Sister Sherman when we were in the same ward many years ago. And I still actually have some of the presentations that he shared at that time that Sister Sherman shared, honestly, and they've been really influential in my life. He was the director of training and development at People Smarts, which is a leadership firm specializing in emotional intelligence. He was the youth substance abuse coordinator at Valley Mental Health and an instructor for the state of Utah shared parenting course for divorcing parents. He's done residential addiction treatment, domestic violence and victim treatment, perpetrator and victim treatment, community mental health, at-risk youth services, and home-based family therapy services. He was awarded the Outstanding Education Award by the Utah Behavioral Healthcare Network for recognition of outstanding efforts in presenting the public with accurate, meaningful, and current information about mental illness. He works closely with civic and community leaders. Brother Sherman did his undergraduate work in family sciences at Brigham Young University and his master's work in marriage and family therapy at Northern Illinois University. He is, I like this part, I'm going to read it too. Jonathan is married to a lovely, skilled husband trainer who has truly earned her keep. They live in eternal bliss, fairly peaceably, sounds right, with their 4 children in the Rocky Mountains of Utah. And I know his children, and they have great kids. Brother Sherman served a mission in the Hamon, California Sacramento mission. Like all of you, he has served in many callings over the years. He's currently teaching, is this still accurate, the 14 to 15-year-old Sunday school class in the American 4th 9th Ward, and is loving it. He's been passionately educating individuals, couples, families, and groups about building strong families and creating great relationships since 1993. I am personally excited about this, and I believe it will be a great blessing to the youth of our state. To listen to this counsel and then take it into their lives and use it during this confusing time. Our scripture, as you know, kind of thematically for BYC20 has been that though we may be beset on all sides and there's confusion all around us, we still are able through the grace of Christ to have hope and to feel at peace. So without further ado, Brother Sherman, we'll turn the time over to you. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me here. I love this topic. President Anderson said that if you have questions, feel free to type out a question, and he'll moderate and ask those when there's a good pause. Anytime's honestly a good time for a pause with me. And just to clarify, we're going up to the top of the hour to end. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so I'm going to enter the presentation mode, but feel free to ask questions as we go. And let me just set this up real quick, and we'll jump into things and have some fun with this. So let's see what we got here. All right. Very good. Can everybody see?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. Okay, good. Sorry. All right. Okay, so anyway, we're going to talk about mindful mood mastery today. Now, everyone has stress. One of the things that I appreciate you all doing is sending me a bunch of pre-survey results. One of the things that a lot of people struggle with dealing with stress, mental health issues, life in general, family stuff, friend stuff, you name it stuff, is the most common feeling is it's just me. I'm just messed up. I'm just screwed in the head. I can't handle it. There must be something wrong with me. I don't have enough faith. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. Whatever it is, let me just really disabuse everyone of anything where you're thinking this is just you. I've been doing this for 25 years with every type of person, from the most mild cases to the most heinous and severe, and everything in between. Individuals, couples, families. And one thing I can tell you is that you are not alone in any of this. If you have a pulse, you will suffer with stress in this life. There's nothing unusual about you. And if you suck at handling stress, there's nothing unusual about you either. Everyone sucks at stress. And the people who are good at it, they got good at it through a lot of trial and error. Okay? I'm really low stress, happy, positive, centered, near perfect individual. But I'll tell you, not even close, but I'll tell you, I've been in stress monkey mode so many times in my life. As a teenager, you would not recognize me, one, because I didn't have this amazing beard. Thank you very much. But also because I was the ADHD kid who was always in trouble. I did not have, we didn't know what ADHD was when I was a kid, but it still existed. And I spent more time in the principal's office. I should have had my own coffee mug. I was there as much as he was. I was always getting in trouble, always getting bad grades, always struggling, not knowing how to manage peer relationships, a lot of insecurity, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, throw some depression in the mix just for fun, and a lot of family stress growing up. There was abuse in my family. There was a lot of strengths in my family. There was a lot of mess. There's just the whole thing. And I just want to give that as just a background, because most people I know have some variation on some theme of that, some more, some less. And, you know, you can turn out okay and be fairly normal. You know, you just never know. Okay. None of us, the goal here is just make sure you're really clear. If you're dealing with this, one, it's normal. Two, it's workable. If you don't know how to work it, that's okay. That's what I'm for. That's what people like me are for. That's what books are for. That's what workshops are for. There's so many wonderful resources online for all of this too, thank goodness, these days, compared to what there used to be. And so I want to share and take a moment and share the first skill, which is what I'm doing right now, is normalization and validation. Most people are feeling, like I said, that it's just them, and that makes them feel abnormal and that there's something wrong with them. If we can start with, I'm going to share the survey results with all of you so you can see what everyone else has said. And I got a lot of results from people. And what shared here is no different than what I've heard for 25 years in large groups when I'm speaking, on one-on-one sessions when I'm talking to people. And so hopefully there could be some comfort in knowing that. So let me go to another screen here and share this with you and talk about what is really normal and what isn't, okay? So I just, this is in no particular order. I just put all these, all your survey answers together. But when I asked the question, what do you think of the top concerns, issues surrounding stress? I broke them down into some categories and organized them a little bit. Let me kind of show you what other people are experiencing. A lot of the answers came up in the fight or flight responses. So people wanted to know, gain better understanding about stress and how to deal with it, where it comes from. One thing you need to understand as you're understanding your own stress and the stress of others, that the biggest emotion that drives us is fear. And fear gets a bad rap. Fear we think of as a bad thing, and it can certainly feel really bad and it can have a lot of negative impacts, but the truth is fear in and of itself is part of this body that does one thing: fight or flight. You may have had in some psych class. Fight or flight's job is to keep you safe and keep you alive. And it's done a pretty good job on this planet because it's been around for a long time, and we're not that impressive physically, right? I mean, if you ever see a bear and a bear claw, I mean, look at your fingernails. Those claws, lame. They do not work very well. If you checked out your fur, we're not really keen on survival in cold climates, okay? Our fangs, not too impressive. We have some other advantages like opposable thumbs, that's helpful. We have a neocortex up here, which is really large. so that we can have a lot of ability to think things through cognitively, be creative, and make tools and make other ways to solve problems. And we are highly social creatures, so we can band together and use each other for protection. But the thing we need to understand, if we're going to deal with stress, we need to understand fear. And the mechanism of fear is, it has one primary objective, which is safety at all costs. And so we're going to talk and explain a little bit more about fear as we go, but the main mechanism is fight or flight. So if we look at some of your responses and your concerns that you expressed, is some of the fight responses are, sometimes I say hurtful things or hurt my siblings when I'm upset. If I'm upset at people, I say things that I don't really mean, and I get frustrated at myself and others. I also try to control things more and get bossy towards others. These are all aggressive types of behaviors, right? When I'm stressed, I sometimes get so frustrated that I say mean things. When I'm stressed, I get grouchy when I have to take care of my responsibilities. So the fight response in stress keeps threat away from us. Now, these aren't really good methods of doing it, right? But this is where it's coming from. And if we're going to be able to treat it and take care of it, we need to understand the source of it and how to interact with it. We'll talk about a little bit later in today's presentation how to interact with the fear in a way that's effective. That's all stress is a fear reaction. That's all anxiety is a fear reaction, okay? And depression and anger are related emotions to that as well, okay? So one of the strengths that someone shared that they have in the fight response is, I'm pretty good at apologizing when I'm feeling stressed and lash out at people, right? I love that. I've lashed out. I've lost my temper. Ask my wife and kids. This is not a perfect man who's able to practice 100% of what he preaches. I try to practice what I preach. I encourage you to practice what you preach, but I shoot for about 80, 90% of practicing what I preach. I don't know how to do it perfectly, but I shoot for A's and B's. Some things I'm on the honor roll with. Some things I'm still just passing with D's at in life, you know. And I'm sure that's true for so many of you too. So it's good to normalize that. Some flight responses you guys gave is, when I'm asked to speak in front of a group, I get very nervous and stressed. Many of you may have heard that the fear of speaking is number 2 on the ranking of things that people fear. Number 2. The first, number 1 thing that people fear is death. Fear of speaking, what I'm doing here, is terrifying for people. And I do this in front of a group of 20, a group of 50, a group of 100, a group of 500. It used to be terrifying. One thing you don't know about me, but I know about anxiety really well, you probably won't see it too much in here because I'm pretty good at it now, is I'm a stutterer. And you want to talk about anxiety in general, and then anxiety speaking in front of people, I had to take a lot of time learning how to not stutter. And so I just want to share that just so that you guys know that there are ways of managing really crippling forms of stress and anxiety, okay? And now I make a living off of speaking, off of being able to talk well. So if you suck at something, you can become amazing at something. Just bear that in mind. That's good news. At times when I'm stressed, I sometimes neglect my responsibilities. That's flighting away, getting away, running away from problems. Sometimes when I'm stressed, I forget that my siblings need me and I only think of myself. Sometimes flight is running, not just running away from a problem, but it's isolating and withdrawing away from problems deeper into ourselves. And we get more isolated and more self-focused and things like that. And we lose focus on others. This is all normal, okay? I'm not saying it's good, but it's understandable. And that's an important thing to have in mind. Another thing that occurs when we get stressed, we get into a problem focus. When I get stressed, sometimes I think about all the bad things that have happened to me, which is understandable. One of the things we need to be aware of as we get into a problem focus, when people are talking, of course, people come to me and they are coming to me, of course, the only reason they come to me is because they have problems. And I've had a lot of people over the years who aren't my clients, or sometimes my clients will say the same thing, but people ask me, if they don't know me, they'll say, well, so what do you do? And I'll say, well, I'm a therapist. They go, oh gosh, I couldn't do that. And I'll say, why? And I know the answer because it's always the same answer. I say, oh man, it just sounds so depressing. I couldn't listen to people whine and complain about all these hard problems and these negative things in their lives. And gosh, that just must be so depressing. And I'm like, man, that does sound depressing. So glad I don't do that. And they're like, what are you talking about? You deal with problems all day. I said, no, I don't. What are you talking about? I said, people are coming in with problems all day. Yeah, absolutely. That's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with solutions. We're dealing with people who have had the burden of these problems for so long, and they've hit the wall so many times that they're finally tired of it, and they're finally willing to do something and muster up the humility and the courage to walk through a complete stranger's door. They don't know me. Most people have a stigma around counseling or therapy or mental health issues. And so the thought of going to talk to some quack, to some shrink, and bear open all your problems, all your embarrassing problems, all humiliating failures, all of that in front of a complete stranger, and not know if it's even going to work, not know if you're going to like the guy. Excuse me, I got some in my throat. That's terrifying for people to do. Terrifying. And yet they do it anyway, and they walk through my door, and the courage that takes, the humility that takes, how do you not respect somebody like that? How do you not admire someone like that, right? Because Christ said, I show unto men their weaknesses that they may be made strong through me. The only way we get strong is by facing our weaknesses, facing our problems. And then these people come in. They think they're messed up. I know who they are because I know how much courage it took to walk through that door and how much humility it takes. Those are strengths. And I see them as people who have strengths. And then I know the secret because I know how this stuff works. And I know that we can take them from this place to this place through creating solutions. That I'm not going to be just focusing on their problems. I'm going to be focusing on what's right with them. I'm going to be focusing on what resiliency they have, what abilities they have. And they often don't know it, how awesome they are. But I'm really good at finding what's awesome with people. I'm really good at helping people discover and find their strengths and take them to a place of help them. Together we come up with solutions. So most of my day is not spent dealing with depressing problems, even though the problems are very heavy and very depressing for people. But me and these people, we spend time developing a great relationship, and we laugh in here and we joke, and we're irreverent and silly and just real and authentic, and we just talk about real problems, and we'll laugh about them, we'll cry about them, and we'll deal with them. And in the dealing of them, we're creating solutions. So at the end of the day, instead of me being depressed and drained, dealing with all these problem people, I spent my whole day dealing with humble, courageous people who are facing problems with courage and strength and power. That's impressive. That's cool. And so fear, though, and anxiety and stress and depression gets us into a problem focus. So sometimes we need help, sometimes external help, divine help, brother or sister help, whatever, community help, to get us out of that problem focus and into someone who can help you develop a solution focus and see all that is right. We can still address what's wrong. But we have to also see all that is right. Thich Nhat Hanh was this Vietnamese Buddhist, and he wrote a lot of wonderful things that I've enjoyed. And he said, every day we touch what is wrong inside us and around us. And as a result, we are getting sicker and sicker. He said, instead, we need to touch what is right inside us and around us. And that's an important focus that we can move towards. So some other things, and feel free to interrupt if you have any questions or type questions, and President Answer will share those with me, and we can stop my flow. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep running and jabbering and sharing stuff. Awareness, knowledge, tools, and skills.
Lots of people were laughing, Brother Sherman, at your good jokes.
Good. Well, the main thing, number one rule is it's hard to make a Zoom meeting interesting. And I've been to so many talks and presentations and conferences that are just snoozeville, man, right? Oh my gosh. Ugh. So one of my goals is I'm always thinking, what if I was in your seat there? If this guy can't keep me awake, then I got to turn the guy off. I don't care how smart he is, got to turn that guy off. I totally understand. ADHD kid, got to be entertained. So I'm glad to hear that there's some laughter there. That's good feedback. Thanks, brother. All right, awareness, knowledge, tools, and skills. This is the thing where a lot of people are having so much stress because they don't know what to do. Of course they don't know what to do. We don't teach how to do stress. Everyone's going to deal with stress severely, frequently, their entire lives, and yet we never teach how to stress, anxiety, depression, anger. How many of you know how to do basic math? I'm not a mathematician. Don't ask me how to do math, but 2 + 2 = 4. Right? We've all been trained on that because we all need to use that our whole lives. How to conjugate a verb and how to string a sentence together in English. That's a helpful skill. We have to all use that throughout life. But we don't teach emotions. We have to deal with that every single day of our life. What do we teach? some hodgepodge you got in your home, society, church. Some messages are good. Some messages sound good, but they're really wrong and stupid, but we believe them because we don't know that they're not true. And so what happens is, instead of learning a unified method of skills and tools, we instead learn a mess. Imagine if instead of 2 + 2 = 4, you were taught 2 + 2 = bananas, and someone else was taught 2 + 2 = 5. Imagine trying to have a conversation with that person. Imagine trying to have being able to function in life if everyone was doing something different. Well, everyone's doing something different with stress and emotions, and everyone's got different opinions and ideas. It's a mess. So I'd like to know, I just lost. Hold on. Looks like I just went into sleep mode. There we go. Hold on a minute, folks. Don't change that dial.
As a note, I will tell you that Brother Sherman is also famous for the Chalk Bus, which is a restored VW van that he drives around Utah Valley and other areas, and is world famous. Shared throughout the world, pictures of people jarring with chalk on his bus. So there's a note.
Thanks, President. There it is. There it is. And I'm glad you brought it up, because that's a segue into the tools discussion. Okay. So that chalk bus, it's painted in chalkboard paint, and it says "Draw Me," and there's chalk and a little shower caddy on the back. So if any of you ever come through American Fork, Utah, because why wouldn't you go visit American Fork, Utah? Vacation destination of the stars. Come over and draw on the chalk bus, man. I'll tell you, it's been a fun thing. My wife and I got that 28 years ago when I was in college. It was painted the original color off-white. It's the camper type van. You know, a lot of people, certainly your guys' age, have the dream of van life and touring around everywhere. Well, it's a cool dream, brothers and sisters, I know. Anyway, the point of tools. Now this other car right in front, that's, if you may not know, that's also a Volkswagen, and that's a 1972 Karmann Ghia. And the chalk bus is a 69 Volkswagen bus, and the dog there is our dear Pepper. She's a Border Collie, Australian Shepherd, and she died in April. Super sad. Yeah, but she would go everywhere with me. She'd always be in my therapy office here at home, and she'd always be in the bus with me as my co-pilot. And the point of sharing this slide in a stress management thing is that, this is my daughter and I working on another Volkswagen, her 1969 Bug. This is the engine that they're just beautiful, aren't they? They're just ugly and beautiful and rusty. Fantastic. Okay, is that I want to share something about tools. There's a dashboard that we have. If we're going to really deal with our stress and anxiety and depression and anger, we have to know how the vehicle works. And so one of the things that I teach is that every problem has multiple solutions. Every job has multiple tools for how to handle it. And some tools are multi-purpose, some tools are very specific. And to be able to take a hunk of junk like this and turn it into a fun vehicle that runs and rides. I mean, these engines are 50 years old. I'm 50 years old. I still run and ride. These still run and ride if you know how to work on them. And look how many parts are in that, or whether it's an old vintage car or a modern car, look how many parts are in there. There's thousands, even tens of thousands of parts in your modern cars. Do you know how many parts are in this vehicle that you drive throughout life? 37.2 trillion cells make up your physical human body. Do you know that? That's more cells in your body than there are stars in our Milky Way galaxy. Okay? That's a lot of moving parts. All right? And you need to know if you don't understand how to drive your vehicle, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to operate, right? It's going to be hard to get through life well. Now, I know how to mechanic up in here in this engine, and I know how to mechanic on these physical engines of these cars. You don't need to be a mechanic to know how to drive your car, right? You just need to know the basics, right? How to read the dashboard, how to use the brakes, how to use the steering wheel, how to check your mirrors, how to obey the rules of the road. You don't need to know how to tear down an engine and build the thing back up. You don't need to know that amount of knowledge, but you need to know the basics of how to drive, okay? And so when we're talking about the need for skills and tools, one of the things that can be really helpful is knowing what's the dashboard on your car, on your physical car, your car that you drive this body has a dashboard. You may not know it, but it's constantly telling you things that most of us, because we've never learned emotions and stress management in any systematic way, it's telling you a lot of things that you just don't know how to read. But I'm going to share some of them with you, and you'll see how to read them. Okay, let me go back and just to this awareness, knowledge, tools, and skills. Somebody had asked, what is the cause and science of stress? That's part of what I want you to know. Is I want you to know what's the neurophysiology of stress, what's going on, and how to work with it. Okay, a lot of you ask, how do I understand? How to help others deal with stress? How do I deal with my own? What's a healthy amount of stress? Recognize when I am stressed, knowledge and awareness. You have to pay attention to your dashboard, okay? So one way to look at this is I've drawn this, you can draw this table on a sheet of paper. Just make these 4 columns: emotions, body, core message, and action, okay? And under depression, anxiety, or anger, we have these areas. And so imagine that your emotion that you're feeling is one of the warnings on your car. So if you're feeling depressed or sad, anxious, or angry, that's neat. That's telling you that something's going on. When I'm talking about depression here, I say that that's the parent or the primary emotion. Okay, that's one of the core base emotions. Anger at the bottom there, that's what we call the child or the secondary emotion. If anytime you see anger in someone, that's like the top of the dandelion head. That's not the source of it. The root is depression or anxiety. Anxiety is kind of the close cousin to depression and anger. They kind of hang out like a close cousin does. It's kind of hard to have depression without having anxiety, kind of hard to have anger without being stressed and anxious. So all these are emotions that cause a lot of stress, right? And each one of these emotions show up in the body in unique ways and highly predictable ways, which is good to know, because 2 + 2 = 4 is highly predictable. If you can predict something, you can prepare for something. If you can prepare and predict for something, you can use that thing. Instead of constantly being surprised by it. Most people are surprised by their stress. They fear and they flight and fight from their stress because they don't know what to do with it. It's the unknown that freaks us out. Not knowing what to do, not knowing when it's going to come. And if it does come, I know from my past experience, I suck at handling it. I can't handle it, so I don't want more stress. That's a failure model. There's no way to get through life that way, because there's no way to avoid stress in this life. I mean, yeah, you can add extra stress and you can avoid some stress, but stress is life. We didn't come to this life for a life of ease and comfort. Christ himself came to be a man of sorrow, well acquainted with grief. Think about that. Are either of you a man or a woman of sorrow? Have you been well acquainted with grief? Think about that for a minute. That means, by definition, you're Christ-like. You are like Christ if you've suffered this life. And we oftentimes think about being Christ-like as someone who's just serene, calm, holy, and loving all the time. And we oftentimes feel one of the stresses a lot of people feel is that I'm just not good enough. I'm not perfect enough. I should be doing better. You need to remember that Christ came down to our level to be with us. We talk about being Christ-like. You know what he did? He became human-like because he wanted to be you-like. Because he wanted to have compassion and understanding. How could he gain compassion and understanding if he didn't go through what you're going through? If he was just some lofty God who'd never been through it, how could he relate to us? Some people had expressed a concern because they haven't dealt with depression or anxiety and they don't know how to help other people. And I'm glad that they haven't gone through those horrible things. But it's hard to help somebody if you don't really understand their pain. Part of the reason you're feeling pain and stress and depression and anxiety is to gain experience. And hopefully one of the things you'll gain and Probably a lot of you have, I'm sure. No doubt of it. You probably gained compassion for others. You probably gained more understanding of what suffering's like. And we can use that compassion, that understanding to help others. Compassion is a wonderful, interesting word. I looked it up once. It comes from the Latin word compati, which means to suffer with. That's what Christ did. He came down to be human-like, to suffer with us, so that from him understanding us, we could be in being with us as we are, a lofty, removed God, but as a fellow sufferer, to walk with us and then ask us to start to walk with him and follow him as he shows us a path out of suffering. Kind of cool. Kind of cool. Christ-like isn't all about just doing righteousness. That's a good thing. But that's not what it's all about. It's about being real. It's about being human. It's about being sufferers who can learn to be kind, not just to others, kind to self, patient with self, compassionate with self. I know a lot of you are really good at being compassionate with others, but you suck at being compassionate to yourself. I'm here to tell you that's not okay. We got to be compassionate to ourselves just as much as we are to others.
Brother Sherman, we have a question here. It says,
Yes.
So when you say depression, are you talking about the feeling of being down and not a clinical label of being depressed? We all experience feelings of depression, right?
Great question.
And then you want me to feature these two? I have two open right now. The other says, I love that you mentioned that the Savior came to be you-like. We are always trying to be like him, but I had never thought about him learning to be like us. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm so glad that resonated. And I think it's an important understanding, because too often I think one of Satan's great tactics is disconnection. The last thing he wants is the atonement at 1 minute. You may have already heard that many times. The atonement is to bring us at one with God, to bring us up and cover all the gaps in between that we couldn't figure out on our own. He's like, that's okay, I got you, I love you, I'm going to bring you at one to me. Well, Satan's whole objective is exactly the opposite, a disconnect. If he can help you think through a false understanding of a beautiful truth that the idea of being Christ-like is to be so perfect in an unattainable way, which I guarantee is unattainable in this life, to be perfect. I guarantee you that President Nelson needs every bit as much of atonement as you do, as any prisoner in the prison. No one's getting to heaven on their own merits. We all need just as much of atonement. I was explaining to someone the other day who, a wonderful return missionary, she just didn't understand the gospel she was teaching, like unfortunately a lot of people don't, because she's worried about how she keeps failing God, and she's worried about him being upset with her. I told her, I said, you realize you can't out-sin God's love. You realize that, right? She's like, what do you mean? I said, you can't out-sin God's love. But I keep hurting him every time I sin or make a mistake. I said, you realize the atonement wasn't an afterthought. This wasn't something that in Christ we're like, okay, we got this wonderful plan, we're going to send them to earth, they've got a limited amount of sins they can accomplish, but if they're too far past that, we don't know what to do. Oh man, they're sinning more than we anticipated. I paid for that sin, but what about this one? None of this was an afterthought. This was all built in. Every sin you've committed, are committing, will commit, has already been paid for by infinite and eternal atonement. Why? Because they love you like crazy. You cannot out-sin God's love. I'm not saying to be careless with your sin. I'm not saying not to try and not to improve. But don't you think for a minute that you can out-sin God's love. I've got 4 kids. Some are active, some are not. Some have been easy to work with, some have been hard to work with. It does not matter how much they succeed or fail. They cannot out-sin my love as a dad. Crazy in love with my kids. Even if they're worse, I would still die for them in a second because I'm so crazy in love with them. And I've only been a dad for 26 years. What do I know? God's been a dad for longer, like a lot. So if I'm good at it, I think God's a titch better than Jonathan Sherman at love. Okay, so important to bear that in mind. I'm glad that that resonated because Christ being you like is about connection. You having an unrealistic expectation and pressure on yourself to be perfect is Satan's twist to create a disconnection. Okay, now the other question that was brought up was, I'm talking about depression. Yes, I'm talking about depression in a large umbrella term, which is on a spectrum underneath that umbrella from the most mild depression, just having a bad day, just feeling down, being maybe in a bit of a funk, just feeling the blues a little bit, you know, to full-blown, severe, chronic, disabling depression, suicide, self-harm, and everything in between. It's on a spectrum. There's lots of different types of depression, forms of depression, mild, moderate, severe depressions, depressions that act in different ways. You've heard of bipolar depression. There's cyclothymic, there's dysthymic, there's major depressive disorder. There's just a full spectrum of it. I'm still talking about all of that, right? Because oftentimes depressions that aren't taken care of, they exacerbate, they get worse over time, and so they can expand their problems, okay? So it doesn't matter today whether we're talking about depression, anxiety, or anger. They're all forms of strong emotions that create stress. So, sorry, let me get back to this. In the depression category, if you were to think about, when I ask people this question, I teach people this all the time, because this is part of understanding the neurobiology and the science of why, how stress works in the body. If you think about what happens when you're depressed, whether it's a mild depression or severe depression, the symptoms may be more severe or milder, but they're very common symptoms. If you think about what happens in depression, most people, when I ask them, well, what happens in your body? What do you do behavior-wise when you're depressed? They say things like, I just feel heavy in my chest. I just feel heavy in my body. I just feel really down. I don't feel like doing anything. I've lost interest. I've lost motivation. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be around people. I beat myself up. I don't like myself. I don't want to do anything. I cry a lot, or have a hard time sleeping, or you're sleeping too much, or eating not enough, or eating too much, or a lot of things. If you think about what all those things are doing in the body, it is slowing down your activity, it is slowing down the body. Now, let's say this wasn't depression. Let's say we're not talking about mental health or stress. Let's say we're doing a different workshop. Let's say we're talking about a workshop today on healthy balance and mindfulness and peace and happiness in life. And I were to say to you, one of the great things that you could do to be happier in life is to slow down. That would sound like a good message, wouldn't it? Because it is. It's an intelligent message, right? On the seventh day, God ceased his labors and rested. Day of rest. Slow down. You notice that we as Mormons kind of don't do that really well. I think we've done better with the coronavirus, actually, with slowing down, because we don't have meetings, and we don't meet as frequently for our callings in the same way. But typically, Mormons don't slow down when you have a 3-hour block, or what we used to have a 3-hour block, and then you have callings all day, and responsibilities and things like that, which are good things. Mormons are great for being busy. Mormons are good for getting things done, for being productive. But we really kind of stink at slowing down, right? But not just us Mormons, in our larger culture. Look at what we do. What we do is that we have a hard time slowing down once a week, and really slowing down and being peaceful and calm in our activity. But also we have a hard time slowing down during the day. Okay, so if you think about what a normal biological body, okay, this body's been around for a long, long time on the planet. It's developed with a lot of really wonderful mechanisms in here. The opposable thumb's a great one. It does a lot of things. This wasn't an accident. It's developed to do some really cool things. So what happens biologically, energy-wise, during the day is, let's say we had a good night's sleep. We enter the day with a lot of energy. We work. By midday, we take a break, hopefully have some lunch. Everyone gets a little sleepy, right? A little sleepy after lunch, get a little tired, right? And our energy dips for a few hours. And then rest hopefully a little bit, and then up we go, gain some energy again, work through the rest of the day, and then get tired, and then go rest again. Sleep, sleep, repeat. That's the normal energy level. We don't do that. We take 5-hour energy drinks or Red Bulls or things like that, so that when we have this dip, we go, that's bad. We need to be productive all the time, because slowing down, we've got to be productive. We have to always be doing, because heaven forbid you ever stop and smell the roses and experience the amazing beauty of this gorgeous life. Heaven forbid you actually do what Christ said and consider the lilies of the field. They don't spin, neither do they toil, and yet they are more finely arrayed than Solomon in his temple. Yeah, Christ, don't have time for that. Sorry, I got to get busy, got to get doing things. And when I'm not doing things, I got to feel bad about not doing more things. I got to be doing more things, always doing. It's never enough. It's never enough. I'm never enough. It's never good enough. There's always more, and my to-do list is big, and I'm stressed, and I'm overwhelmed. I don't got time to consider the lilies of the field. Christ is like, I thought you guys believed in me. Maybe you should do what I say, because I kind of know some stuff here. Yeah, that's great to teach on Sunday school, but I got things to do. I mean, at what point do we slow down? Now, what's interesting with this biological, remember, biology has been around longer than our current culture, American culture. Any culture that's been on the planet, our biology has been around, is outsurpassed. Any religion that's been on the planet, our biology is outsurpassed. Any political system, any cultural system, any country's border, biology's been around longer. I believe biology wins. And if we have a cultural message that you need to keep working when the biology says we need to slow down, I think biology might tell us something about that and say, hey, guys, paying attention, I want to force you to pay attention. Because if you're not going to slow down intelligently, I will emotionally force you down. And that's what depression does. Because there are some cultures that when they hit the midday and their bodies slow down, they said, hey, let's just work with that the way that the body works. Everyone seems to have the same thing. Let's mold our culture around our biology instead of ignore our biology and just do whatever the heck we want. What these cultures do, some South American cultures, some European cultures, they have a siesta time. And for 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon, everything shuts down. Stores shut down. The workday stops. People take a leisurely, long lunch break, read a book, meet with friends, laugh with family, go home and eat. Take a nap if you need to, so they can rest and then have energy for the rest of the day. That almost sounds smart. But let's not be smart when dealing with our emotions, the things that affect us more than anything. Well, besides being a smart idea, it's an incredibly effective idea, because in countries that do that, their mental health, they have depression, they have anxiety, they have anger, they have stress. Their rates are way lower than our rates are in the U.S. and in other industrialized countries that are got to constantly be going. Okay, but let's not listen to depression. Let's see depression as the enemy, because it feels bad and it has negative consequences. That's true, it does. But one thing you'll never hear from me is that I'll never call depression a bad emotion. I call it a strong emotion. Same with anxiety and anger. These are strong, powerful emotions, but they are not bad any more than any part of your body is bad. Feeling pain when you burn your hand on a hot stove, the trick question is that a bad feeling? Because of course, obviously, it certainly feels bad. But what's the alternative? What if you touch a hot stove and you don't feel any pain at all? What happens to your hand? And you just keep it on there because you don't feel any pain. You don't notice that it's burning. How much damage occurs if we don't feel that pain? So I guess pain is actually a good emotion that feels bad. That's what depression, anxiety, and anger are. They're good emotions that feel bad. And the reason they get so bad is that we've never learned how to interact with them, what actions to take, which is next. But we have to start with the understanding that this core message of depression, and each one of these have an important core message. The core message is to slow down. And then what we want to do is the next thing is we want to listen to the depression when it whispers so it doesn't have to scream to get your attention. When we're at the point where we are so depressed and so deeply depressed, and I'm not saying that all depression or mental health issues are caused because we're not slowing down enough. Our depressions can be caused by situations. They can be caused by environmental factors. They can be caused by organic, hereditary factors. Sometimes there's reasons why people get depressed. Sometimes there's no reasons that people get depressed any more than we know that someone who's been smoking and then gets lung cancer, we can see that there's a clear causal effect of that. But there's other times that someone gets lung cancer and they never smoked a cigarette in their life, because sometimes people just get lung cancer. Well, it's the same thing with depression, anxiety, or anger. Sometimes we just have problems. Sometimes there's a clear reason, sometimes there's not. But we want to learn to listen to it when these signs in your body, the heaviness, the slowing down, the loss of interest, we want to, at that point, start talking to anxiety with a basic feelings meditation, where we say something along the lines of, thank you, old friend, for coming. You're welcome here. What do you need? Where do you need me to slow down? I'm probably going too fast in my expectations of myself, the pressures on myself, the shoulds. Oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing this. I know so many people, when they even stop and slow down and take a break, they can't even slow down because in their mind they're going, yeah, but I should be doing this. I feel bad, but I'm taking time for myself. It's okay to slow down. There's a time and a season. Go read that whole scripture. It's a wonderful one in the Old Testament. There's a time for action and a time for inaction. Okay? It's okay to be slow. And so we need to, by choice, is the third thing, the action, 3 actions. Listen to it, talk to it as an ally, not as an enemy. And then by choice, slow down mindfully. Take a break, take a nap, take a healthy escape, reach out. Maybe you need to slow down your behavior and physically rest. Maybe you need to slow down your expectations in your head and be more calm and gentle with yourself. Maybe you need to, you're too isolated. Maybe you need to reach out. Maybe it's hard to reach out. Whatever it is, but slow down and examine and say, wait a minute. What do I need to take care of that I'm not taking care of? How do I need to slow down and attend to me? And if I know how to handle my depression, then I'll handle it. If I don't know how, it's okay. It's okay not to know things in this life. We're all ignorant about billions of things. Literally, trillions of things we're ignorant about and that exist in the universe. It's okay to not know things. You don't have to have it all figured out. I'm 51. I figured out a lot compared to when I was your age. And I hope by the time I'm 25 years older now, at 75, I hope I'll have a lot more figured out than I figured out at 51. So it's okay to not know things. It's okay to get help. Okay? So I'm going to go through a couple of these other things on these anxiety and anger on this dashboard, and we'll go ahead and end up here. Because there's so many skills. There's no way to answer all the skills, right, in an hour presentation, of course. But I want to share this thing here, this dashboard, which is something that I've never seen anybody teach. Everyone always tells me, I've never heard this before. Why don't we teach this? I'm like, yeah, I don't know why we don't teach it. The reason I teach it is because 25 years of working with tens of thousands of people, they keep teaching me, well, they tell me to do this with my anxiety or anger and it doesn't work. And we started doing this, it starts working. Because we're starting to learn to not fight these emotions as bad things. We're learning how to start using them as allies. I'll explain that a little bit further in the next slide, but I'll go through a couple things here. Anxiety, you think about how anxiety shows up in the body, okay? What anxiety does, right, is instead of this slowed down feeling, it has a lot of messages in the body about pay attention. What's going on? Oh my gosh, right? Stress, right? What does your body do? It goes into this mode. It goes into tension. Tension, your muscles tense here. Your chest tenses here. Your gut tenses here. We go, basically that's the body coiling the muscles, tighten them into a fight or a flight response. That's what it's doing. And it doesn't matter whether it's a real, literal threat, like a bear attack, or if it's a perceived social or emotional threat. It doesn't matter. Fear does not know how to determine. This is important. Fear cannot tell the difference between a bear attack and a social stress. It cannot tell the difference between a real, factual problem or an imagined thing you've worked yourself up into a tizzy about. Fear, as the mechanism, cannot tell the difference. Because that's not its job. Its job is to react just in case. And if I were to throw something at you right away, you'd go like that. Because you'd have that flinch response. That's that tensing. That's that protecting yourself. And the reason we bring our hands up here It's not just a fight and flight. It's to protect our core, our vulnerable body, right? We got our organs here. And we don't want to get this attacked. We're trying to protect this from a threat, right? Bring our hands up to protect our face, right? And we do that even if it's a non-physical threat. It's interesting. It's very interesting. And so our heart rate increases. The reason our breathing, it goes more shallow up here. Right, I'm giving the exaggerated versions of high anxiety, but even when you have low anxiety, you're having micro versions of this happening because it always happens the same way. You're having this tension here. If you're carrying it a lot of times, you don't have anywhere to release that tension. It goes up into here, into our face. Our face gets more scrunched down. We get, tensity, and we start to get a tension headache up in here, and this tightness starts to develop. All that starts to occur.
Well, Sherman, we had a question. So I thought maybe this might be a time to ask it. So I know that service can help us feel better when we're feeling down. And sometimes after the fact, I feel like maybe I was too focused on myself. But when I feel depressed, it's really hard to reach out to others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you feel depressed, it's really hard to reach out to others. And this ties into a previous comment that somebody asked about, am I talking about a mild depression or a severe depression? Because people will say, well, if you're depressed, we'll just go out and serve people or go for a walk, go for a run. Those are good answers. And except that they're terrible answers, but they're good answers, depending on what kind of depression we're dealing with and how severe it is. So if I have a mild or medium depression, sometimes me going outside of myself and helping other people can really help me get outside of myself and put things back into perspective, make me feel better. Getting out and walking or going for a run or exercising or being active can help bring some endorphins up and help me start to feel better, right? So those are good things. So that's a good answer when the depression is more mild, right? But when the depression is more severe, we get paralyzed. We can't function. And then the messages of, well, you just need to go serve other people, or you just need to have more faith, or you just need to try harder, or you just need to go out and do something. Instead of being helpful, those become more weights of heaviness. They become more shoulds of things that I can't do. More pressure of how I obviously can't function. Everyone else seems to be able to handle it. I must really be messed up. And this is where slowing down becomes really important, to slow down and say, wait a minute, welcome depression, my old friend. Thank you for coming. Why are you here? What am I not slowing down enough that I need to take care of? And listening to depression, it just keeps saying, you need to slow down. You need to slow down. You've got too much on you. You can't do this on your own. It's okay. Go get help. That's why I'm so thrilled when people walk through my office, because I'm like, I know what depression's been doing. Depression got them to slow down enough to pick up a phone, find a therapist, make an appointment, face a bunch of fears, somehow get past those fears, walk through the door, and take the time to literally slow down and learn something and get some support. So we need to know when it's helpful to use some tools and when it's not helpful to use other tools. So when people say, well, it's good to go out for people, it is. So going back to that hippie bus that you saw, the chalk bus, and my wife's Carmen Gia that I rebuilt the engine on, I have so many tools in my garage. One tool of serving others is not enough. That's like the wonderful hammer. Hammer's a great tool. When you need a hammer, there is no better tool than a hammer when you need a hammer, right? But when I need a 10 millimeter wrench, a hammer is a useless tool. It doesn't mean that the hammer's bad. It just means it's the wrong tool for the job. So I'm giving everybody here a super brief outline of what your dashboard is. I would love if we had 3 more hours. I don't know if anybody has the patience for that, but to really teach you all the skills, because I'm teaching these skills in seminars all day with people. I'm teaching these skills to couples and individuals and families over the course of months, so they can learn all the ways of how do I adapt and how do I put all these skills into play. So this isn't the answer to all the problems of stress. This is where you can start to learn how to interface with your stress through depression, anxiety, or anger. Interface with it in a way that's more effective. And then if you don't know how to slow down or how to pay attention, you can then go get that help and knowledge if you need. So this is an introduction, a way of how to start managing some of these stressors. So thanks for bringing that up. So what we want to do with when the anxiety starts rearing its head and it starts saying we've got to, we'll wrap up here in just a minute. I just noticed the time. We want to listen to it when it whispers, so it also doesn't have to scream to get our attention, okay? And so we want to pay attention when you're feeling a little bit of stress and anxiety and tension. Notice that and do the same feelings meditation. Thank you, anxiety, my old friend, for coming. You're welcome here. What are you trying to tell me? And then I want you to scan and look around. Look around for threats. Look around for problems. And look around for what you're not paying attention to. What do I need to take care of? Maybe I need to slow down. Maybe I need to take care of some tasks on my list. Maybe I need to give myself the freedom to stop putting more tasks on my list and give myself the time to go take care of something else and maybe take care of myself. It's not selfish. Maybe taking care of myself is called self-care. And that's a really healthy thing to do. Maybe I need to pay attention to what I need and trust that it's okay to take care of myself. Christ removed himself from the press of the crowd, didn't he? He wasn't always there with everyone all the time. Sometimes he needed some downtime. He needed to take care and recharge himself, right? And the interesting thing is, too, people think, well, I needed to be Christ-like means I need to do everything all the time. Christ did amazing things when he was on the earth. He didn't heal everybody when he was on the earth. We have a handful of beautiful miracles he did. His job wasn't to come to earth and fix everything on this planet. His job was to come down and show us a better thing and give us some really good examples and then save us on the big picture stuff, right? Save our soul, save our physical bodies through the atonement. And your job is also not to fix everything. Your job is to do the things that you can do, slow down, pay attention, take care of things that you can't do, and realize, find that balance in there. That's another way of being Christ-like. Christ-like is not about constantly putting yourself on the cross 24/7. He also stopped and hung out with his publican and sinners friends and had dinner and told stories and listened to each other about their problems and probably told some really good jokes because he was human-like and he was fun to be with his pals. And he was criticized for doing that, by the way. Well, you're not doing enough. You should be doing more good acts of service and stuff with bad people. Right? So anyway, I realized we didn't get part of it. I'll just, yeah.
Thank you for helping me see my feelings and emotions as positive things that I should pay attention to instead of something to be ashamed of and suppress. This is a great mental shift.
Wonderful. And if that's what that person got out of it and what everybody else can get out of it, then my mission is accomplished. My goal today was not to teach everything. There's no way to do that in less than an hour. But if that's what you got out of it and some important mental shifts, now go out there, all of you, in your own way, in your own time, at your own pace, and start learning about how emotions really work. It's amazing to me how many people I've dealt with who have anger problems, anxiety problems, depression problems. They've experienced it for decades. And yet when I teach them the basics of why their emotions work the way that they do, they've had it for years, but they've never actually stopped and learned about it. And so knowledge is power. The glory of God is intelligent. He does want us to seek ye out of the best books, words of wisdom. He wants us to use our brains to help ourselves and to help others. It's good to have faith and pray, but none of us go use faith and prayer alone to cure illnesses. We go to the doctor, right? You have a broken leg, it's good to pray for comfort, but you go get a cast and a crutch, right? Lots of times people are, when it comes to mental health, they think, well, that's different. I should just have more faith and not have to deal with this. It's not true. You can have plenty of faith and still have all these problems, okay? So go get the help you need. Don't do it alone, and reach out and trust that it's okay to have this. So anyway, I'll go ahead and wrap up. And thank you for your patience. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to share these wonderful things about our mental and physical health that can make our lives and the lives of others better, because that's exactly what we're here for, to help you. And I share this and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Brother Sherman. We really appreciate that. I don't see that there's any more questions. If there are, you're welcome to send them. We can get them to Brother Sherman. I'm sure I haven't talked with you about beforehand, but I'm sure you'd be happy to respond to questions after the fact if we get them to you.
Absolutely, I'd be happy
to. I would, as you were talking, so I'll just say just a word. As many of you know, we've been announcing faith gardens in the stake, and one of the verses that we've used many times as a thematic and doctrinal foundation is in D&C 104, and in verse 17 it says the end part is that well, it starts out and says, but in 16, but it must needs be done in mine own way, and behold, this is the way that I, the Lord, have decreed to provide for my saints, that the poor shall be exalted, in that the rich are made low. For the earth is full, and there is enough and to spare. I have prepared all things, and have given unto the children of men to be agents unto themselves. And Brother Hancock of our High Council shared yesterday in a meeting that if you'll recall, in being made low, if the Lord of the vineyard comes and he labors with his fellow laborers. And as he was talking, I thought of that question that the angel asks Nephi: do you know the condescension of God? And the idea that God comes down to earth to be like us and to know what it's like to be us is a true doctrine. He knows what it feels like when you are going through these things, and it is godlike to work through them. It is to better understand those feelings and those experiences is one of the things that it takes to know God and Jesus Christ, who he has sent. And I really appreciate you pointing that out to us, Brother Sherman. And I think that's something that I hope we can all take with us and appreciate. No matter where you're at, the anxiety you may feel, the feelings of not being able to move forward, that you'll take some hope in the sense that Christ is right there with you and knows. And there's a certain divine.
Right on. I love that. It's fantastic.
So thank you, Brother Sherman. We sure appreciate you being with us.
I just lost the volume. I don't know what you just said. Sorry if you said something.
I said thank you for being with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yep.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me. This is a lot of fun. And Chestnut, thanks for thinking about it and inspiring your dad to be as smart as you possibly can be by inviting me, because that's a smart move.
Yeah.
Any day.
Smart move. Always invite. Yes, exactly. So go ahead and turn the time back to you. Brandon, stand it.
Thank you so much, Brother Sherman. Brandon Redford is going to say our closing prayer now.
Dear kind Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and thank you for this wonderful meeting we've been able to have to learn of ourselves and how we can come closer to Thee and learn of how we can improve. And we ask that we may take these things and remember them and apply them to our lives, that we may become more like Thee. And we say this in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks again. I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.